Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I am at the allotment because I am going to be planting garlic, and I am going to teach you how to be planting garlic as well. You can see Colin off to the side just a little bit. He is doing some work digging and filling this raised bed that we just built here at the allotment. But I am going to be planting my garlic. Look at the size of these garlics, like they're incredible. So these were grown here at the allotment this past summer, and now I'm going to be planting them again. And so I am going to take you through everything you need to know in order to grow your own garlic and grow bulbs this size, because these are an amazing size garlic. If you're new here, my name is Bree from Urban Gardening Canada, and I garden in Ottawa Zone 5. So today I'm going to be giving you advice all across Canada or any other cold region on all of the tips that you need to be growing garlic as successfully as this. Okay, so of course, the first thing when it comes to garlic is that you need to get access to garlic. And for the best garlic to grow really big bulbs, what you're going to want to do is grow your own garlic and save some of the bulbs for future years. Now, if you don't have your own stash of garlic because it's your first year growing it or it just hasn't been that successful, the next place that you're going to want to be looking for garlic is at your local farmers market. And that's because if the farmers are selling a nice big head of garlic, then it means it did well in your area. And so you're going to want to use that garlic because it's going to do good for you as well. So if you're buying garlic from the farmer's market, the first thing that you want to do is ask the farmers if they have any seed garlic. So a lot of farmers do sell seed garlic, and what they're doing is they're taking their biggest bulbs that they grew and they're setting them aside to sell. If they don't have seed garlic, then you can just buy garlic from them, the same type that you're going to be using for culinary purposes. But if you are doing that, you do want to ask them what year they grew the garlic in, because you don't want to get moldy garlic that's been sitting in storage for the past year. So definitely make sure to ask them if it is this season's garlic, because it means it's going to be the freshest one for you to be using when you're planting. So when you do decide to get your garlic, you want to grab the biggest head that they're selling, because this one is going to have the biggest cloves in it. So whether it is seed garlic or the culinary garlic that they're selling, just choose the biggest head that you can find, and you're most likely to get really large cloves. So if you're using your own garlic or farmer's market garlic, just know that if you had any type of disease with your garlic in this season, that you're likely going to get it for the upcoming season. And I'm not talking about pests, but very specifically diseases. And that's because garlic is actually a clone of itself. So it's the exact same DNA. So you aren't producing a new plant whatsoever. It's just the same plant that keeps reproducing over and over and over again. And finally, one of the more common tips is the difference between hardneck and softneck varieties. So hardneck varieties are the more common type that we grow here in northern areas. And those are the ones that give you the garlic scape. And you can tell that this is a hardneck variety because it is literally quite a hard neck on it. And you can see when you cut it off that it's this rock hard stalk in the center. And that's what's giving you garlic scapes in the springtime. But there are also soft neck varieties that exist, and you often will see those when people are braiding the garlic to hang it to dry. Those are soft neck varieties, and they're a lot easier to braid. We can't really do that with the hard neck varieties as easily. And I am going to be growing the hardneck varieties because I always have been told that it's better for the more northern areas that we're growing in, but I've never actually grown any softneck varieties to confirm if that is the case or not. So next up is knowing the best location for your garlic. Garlic loves sun. So find a sunny location for them to grow. And right now, where the sun is sitting on the horizon is not the same as where it's sitting during the summertime. So you do want to pick the part of your garden that is the sunniest in June and July, not so much right now if it's not the same space. So make sure that you are picking a space that does get good sun during the early months of summer. And when it comes to soil, it's not that huge of an issue. The soil type really just depends on how you're going to be planting your cloves. So you don't have to worry about not having the right type of soil. You're just going to adjust the depth of planting, but I will get into that later in this video. So when it comes to planting your garlic, you want to plant it 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes, and the ground is going to freeze when your temperatures are regularly staying below 0 degrees Celsius. So this looks like in zone 6 and warmer, we're talking about mid-October to end of November, depending on how warm you get. So we're talking southern Ontario and the west coast of British Columbia. But if you are in zones 3 or 4, now mid-September until the end of October is around the time that you're going to want to be planting. It is important to make sure that you get the timing right, because you do not want your garlic to sprout before the snow comes, because if you have greenery that comes up above the soil, it's going to make it a lot harder for the garlic to grow successfully for the next year. So getting your timing right really does matter. But we are now at the end of September, so for most places around Canada, you're about at a right time to start planting your garlic, or at least collecting your seed garlic and figuring out a location on where you do want to plant it. And although I said that you don't want any greenery growing on top of the soil, you do want roots to be growing below the soil, and that's exactly why you're trying to get it in for 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes. So you can err on the side of planting it later when the ground is about to freeze, but you aren't going to get quite as many roots or as big of a root system by then. So just the timing is probably one of the harder parts about growing garlic, but otherwise it's really not too big of an issue. All right, so as you can see, I am getting my garlic prepared to be planted, and waiting until you're about to plant your garlic to split the cloves from the bulb is a really good choice, because once you split them from the bulb, the cloves are going to start to dry out, and that means that they're going to shrink. And when they're shrinking, the skin is easier for it to come off, and you really don't want the skin to come off the cloves, because that is your protective barrier between the water and the soil and the actual clove itself. So if you do damage the skin, then you have a greater likelihood of your clove rotting in the soil, and you really don't want that to happen. If you do damage the skin, as I have a few times now, just set those aside, because you can cook with them later, so they're never going to go to waste. It's just, it sucks when you break the skin on some of your biggest cloves, because obviously those big cloves are the ones that you want to be planting. So this is why it's taking me so long to separate these as I talk to you guys, because I'm trying to be as gentle as possible pulling these apart. Here's an example of a clove that I would have loved to have planted. It's huge, but unfortunately, as I was breaking it apart from the head, the skin did peel off of it here, which means that I am not going to be planting this one to prevent any type of rot from happening, but we're happily going to eat this one at home and cook with it. But this would have made a perfect one to be planting. So when I do go to plant them, this is where the root was on the original bulb, and this was the top of it. And that's exactly how you're going to want to be planting it, is making sure that the root is at the bottom and the point is at the top. If you do plant them sideways, they will still grow, they just might not grow as well. So you definitely want to make sure that you're getting the top and the bottom done right. Okay, so when you are planting, of course, you're going to take your biggest cloves that you have, you're putting the tip pointed up, and then depending on where you're growing is going to depend on the depth that you plant them in. Again, if you're in a warmer zone like 6 and warmer, which is southern Ontario, the west coast, or even in the US, you're going to be planting your cloves shallower than you will if you are in a zone 5 like I am, or colder. So if you are in a warmer zone, you are going to plant it 2 inches. So you'll have about 2 inches of soil above the top of the clove. But if you are in a colder zone like I am, then you're going to want to plant it about 3 inches from the top of the clove. Also, it depends on your soil type. If you're planting in the ground and you have clay soil, you're going to want to err closer to that 2-inch mark because clay holds more water in it. So it is a muckier type of garden soil, which means that your cloves are more likely to rot. So you're going to want to plant it a little shallower just to help let the soil dry out. If you are planting in a sandier soil that dries out quickly, then you do want to go that 3 inches because then it gives it more moisture to continue to grow. So depending on your zone and your soil type is really going to help you decide on your depth. Also, there are 2 things to this. So the deeper you plant it, the better winter protection your cloves have. However, the deeper you plant it, the more soil exists on top of your cloves that turn into bulbs, and that means the weight of the soil can affect the size of your bulb. So you really just want to be between that 2 to 3 inches in depth. I'm using my Hori Hori knife that has measurements on it so I can make sure that I'm planting it to the right depth as I do this. So that is going to be really helpful. And I am going to lay out my cloves so that way I can make sure that I'm planting them a good distance from each other and I can just do it really quickly. You do want to keep about 6 inches of space around your cloves because you want them to grow big. So you want to give them the space to grow big, which is really important. And also, it allows you to weed more because a well-weeded garden is always good for garlic because they don't want to compete for any nutrients. I am going to top up this garden with comfrey the next time that I come here because garlic really likes the nutrients, phosphorus and potassium, and comfrey is higher in that than it is in nitrogen. So the next time I come here, I am going to amend the soil, but if you have a nice soil amendment that is higher in the pK of the NPK scale, then that is going to be really good for your garlic to add to it right now as you are looking to grow your garlic. All right, and then once I'm done planting these garlic bulbs, I am just going to put some mulch on top of them. I'm gonna give them a nice water, and then I'm going to mulch them because the mulch is just gonna help give that added layer of warmth over the winter time. And it also is going to feed the soil, which is another good thing for these garlics because they love to get fed. So I am going to get to planting these since the sun is setting and it's starting to get dark. The mosquitoes are everywhere. And once we get these in the ground, we can give them a nice watering and mulch. But otherwise, that is everything to plant garlic. It's actually really simple. It's something that you get to do right now, so it gets to extend the garden season a little bit, which is always really nice. And any work that you're putting in now means that you are going to reap the rewards next year, and that's always a nice feeling to know that you prepared your garden this year for next year, taking care of yourself. That is everything for today's video. If you found this video helpful, make sure to leave a comment below on how many years you've been growing garlic. If you found this video to be helpful, I would appreciate if you could hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. But otherwise, I will see you in this video here. Bye.